A homeless woman arrived at the gates of an enormous mansion, barefoot, clothes torn, and a baby in her arms. The security guard tried to stop her, but she shouted something that chilled the millionaire to the bone. "He's your son!" And what happened next would forever change both of their destinies. Subscribe to the channel for stories that touch your heart every day. The millionaire watched the city through the panoramic windows of his penthouse. 50 stories above the urban chaos, this was his private kingdom. The cloudy sky mirrored his mood as he swirled the glass of whiskey between his fingers. The last rays of sunlight painted the room gold, highlighting the modern lines of the impeccable yet cold decor. Just like his life, his personal assistant entered silently, balancing a folder of documents. "The merger contracts are ready for signing," she announced with professional efficiency. "And the board expects confirmation about your attendance at Saturday's charity gala." There were things that money couldn't buy or replace. The weight of memory accompanied him like an invisible shadow. In another part of the city, a woman staggered along the uneven sidewalk of a run-down neighborhood. Her haggard face showed signs of sleepless nights. In her arms, she clutched a small bundle to her chest, a baby of a few months old, sleeping, oblivious to the turmoil around her. A light drizzle began to fall, and she quickened her pace, shielding the child with her own body. "Just a little further," she whispered to the baby, though she spoke more to encourage herself. She stopped in front of a newsstand, momentarily sheltering from the rain. On the front page of a business magazine, the millionaire's face stared back at her, austere, ruthless, successful. Those eyes, the same eyes that, now closed, rested on the tiny face of the baby in her arms. "He needs to know," she murmured to herself as she tucked the newspaper clipping into her worn purse. Back at the mansion, the millionaire dismissed the household staff early. The day's news had irritated him deeply. Another investor trying to associate his name with sappy social causes. "Charity is for those seeking redemption," he used to say in the rare interviews he gave. He didn't need redemption. He needed control. As the storm brewed outside, he reviewed documents about a hostile takeover in his office. Family business, 3 generations, now on the verge of bankruptcy. A deal that would result in mass layoffs, but would multiply his wealth. The numbers danced before his eyes, cold and precise. The silence of the mansion was broken by the insistent ringing of his private line. The number on the screen was unknown. He answered with irritation. "You don't know me," a woman's voice said, trembling. "But you knew my husband, and now you need to meet your son." In her mind, clouded by exhaustion and fear, a single thought persisted. That child deserved more than a life of deprivation and danger. He deserved the truth about his origin, and perhaps, just perhaps, he would find protection in the arms of a man who never knew he would one day be called uncle. The next morning dawned with remnants of the storm. The millionaire maintained his relentless routine. 50 minutes of exercise, black coffee with no sugar, reviewing international stock quotes before even the first ray of sunlight. The mansion, strategically located on top of a secluded hill, was his fortress against the world. The head of security knocked discreetly on the office door. "Sir, we have a situation at the main gate." "What kind of situation?" "I'll come down." Her bare feet were injured, her torn clothes barely protecting her from the cold wind. In her arms, she held tightly a small bundle wrapped in a worn blanket. The security guard stood beside her, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. When she saw the millionaire approaching, the woman straightened her posture, revealing a determined look that contrasted with her weakened appearance. "Finally," she said, her voice hoarse, "I need to talk to you." "About him," and she indicated the baby in her arms. "I don't have time for this," replied the millionaire, gesturing for the security guard to remove her. As the security guard moved towards her, the woman recoiled and, in a desperate move, uncovered the baby's face. "Look at him!" she shouted with the last of her strength. "He's your son!" His eyes met those of the baby, who had just woken up with the noise. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Those eyes, a peculiar shade of grey-green, almost translucent in the morning light. The same eyes that stared back at him in the mirror every morning. The same eyes he had seen in only one other person in his entire life. "Impossible," he murmured, stepping back. "You forgot me, but he carries your blood," said the woman, advancing towards him. Her legs gave way, and in a swift movement she placed the baby in the millionaire's arms. "Do what I couldn't." "Sir, what should we do with the child?" asked the security guard, while two other employees organized emergency care for the unconscious woman. The millionaire looked again at the baby in his arms. Something in that gaze, in those still-forming features, provoked a deep unease. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be true. And yet, "Take them inside," he ordered, handing the baby back to the security guard as if he were holding something explosive. "Call a doctor for both of them, and prepare the guest room in the West Wing." The baby, after a thorough examination, proved to be healthy, despite signs of inadequate nutrition. "He's approximately 4 months old," informed the pediatrician, adjusting his glasses. "He's underweight, but there's no cause for immediate concern." "How long until the woman wakes up?" he asked, without taking his eyes off the child. "Difficult to say. Her body is recovering essential energy. It could take hours or even days." "And prepare the paperwork to contact Child Protective Services." During the board meeting that afternoon, the millionaire maintained his usual composure, discussing mergers and acquisitions as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But his mind wandered constantly to the image of those eyes, the eyes of the baby waiting in his house. "The proposal is risky," commented one of the directors, bringing him back to the present. "But the potential return is substantial. Send the revised contracts by tomorrow." The baby's cry, sharp and persistent, seemed to penetrate every corner of the previously silent mansion. "Have you checked if he's hungry or uncomfortable?" The intermittent crying echoed through the corridors, even with his doors closed. Around 3 in the morning, irritated and exhausted, he got up and walked to the room being used as a makeshift nursery. The hastily hired nurse slept in a nearby armchair, overcome by fatigue. The baby, however, remained awake, sobbing softly after hours of crying. He approached the crib with hesitation. The baby immediately focused on him, his tearful eyes seeming to recognize him. For a moment, the millionaire felt a pang in his chest. That look, it was like seeing his brother again, in the rare photographic records he kept hidden. "This is absurd," he muttered to himself. "Genetic coincidences happen." "Don't get comfortable," whispered the millionaire, feeling ridiculous for talking to a being that couldn't understand him. "This is temporary. How long will it take?" For a fleeting moment, he allowed himself to imagine, what if it were true? He shook his head, dismissing the dangerous thought. No, it was impossible. He would never be a father, never wanted to be a father, not after everything that had happened. On the morning of the second day, the woman finally regained consciousness. Her eyes scanned the unfamiliar room with a confused expression until they found the nurse monitoring her vital signs. "My baby," were her first words, her voice still weak. "He's being well cared for," assured the nurse. "I'll let them know you're awake." "Who are you, and why are you making these allegations?" "I worked the event. The results arrived today." The millionaire observed the interaction with clinical attention. The bond between them was undeniable. The way the baby responded to the woman's voice, how he calmed down in her arms. There was a genuine connection there that even his skeptical mind couldn't deny. "Why now?" he asked abruptly. "Why show up like this in these conditions?" "We're in danger. You don't know anything about my brother," he said through gritted teeth. "I know he survived. I know he lived hidden under another identity. I know he was my husband." She stroked the baby's face. "And I know this baby is his son. When you find out the truth, you'll need to make a decision. Result, negative for direct paternity. A wave of relief washed over him, followed immediately by confusion. If it wasn't his son, he continued reading. Note, further analysis indicates first-degree genetic compatibility, sibling uncle. We recommend additional testing for definitive confirmation. The tablet slipped from his hands. He looked at the baby as if he were seeing him for the first time, really seeing him. It wasn't his son, it was his nephew. Blood of his blood, through a brother he had believed lost forever. The woman watched his reaction intently. "He died protecting our secret," she said softly. "A fire, 3 months ago. I had no choice but to seek you out. The same people who kidnapped him were still looking for him. He lived in constant fear that they would find him, and that they could use you to get to him." He reached out his little arms in an instinctive gesture that pierced all the defenses carefully built up by the millionaire. Without thinking, he reached out and touched the child's soft cheek, the last vestige of his brother in the world, his family. In the hours following the revelation, the millionaire isolated himself in his office, doors locked, phone off. For the first time in years, he cancelled all meetings without explanation. His mind, trained to analyze facts and make quick decisions, seemed unable to process this new reality. On his desk, old family photographs he kept locked in a safe. He and his brother in childhood, carefree smiles frozen in time. The last photo taken before the kidnapping showed his younger brother, only 10 years old at the time, with that same look that he now recognized in the baby. A knock on the door interrupted his reflections. "The lawyers are here," announced his assistant through the door. "They say it's urgent. The presence of the child and his possible relationship to you represents a considerable risk. If the kinship is confirmed, inheritance issues will inevitably arise. Sir, with all due respect, you can't make decisions based on momentary emotions. There are implications. I'm giving orders." He said it was like a piece of home he had managed to keep. A child without a name, as if to survive, he needed to remain invisible even to the official record of existence. "Why did you bring him to me?" The truth. "And now they know about the baby. We need to talk about what my brother discovered." He paused. "And about a name for him. Someone is contesting your temporary guardianship of the child. No matter the hour. I'll protect you," whispered the millionaire, feeling the weight of that promise. "It's a promise I make to my brother and to you. Horizon is claiming contractual rights over any biological descendants of your brother. I want everything on Horizon: corporate structure, directors, complete history. Making the case public would mean exposing the child to exactly the danger he was trying to avoid. Is there another way? They found us, haven't they?" The idea that there were invisible eyes watching his movements was deeply unsettling. "I need to know exactly what my brother discovered before he died. It's a kind of coded diary." It seemed impossible that his brother had kept that childhood memory for so many years, transforming it into a key to his final legacy. He connected the device to his computer and, when prompted, positioned his thumb over the small sensor. The screen flashed and a password box appeared. Without hesitation, he typed, "Star Hunter Tet 12, the name of an imaginary constellation they had invented together, followed by his brother's birthday. The file opened instantly. "It worked," he murmured, astonished by the connection that had transcended decades of separation. The content was extensive: detailed records, photographs, digitized documents, the complete story of his brother during the years of disappearance. As he explored the files, a dark truth began to take shape. His brother hadn't been the victim of a regular kidnapping. He had been selected as part of a clandestine genetic research program conducted by Horizon, an organization that presented itself as a scientific institute, but operated as a secret arm of powerful interests. "My God," he whispered, reading the horrifying details of the experiments performed. "He discovered that he wasn't the only one," explained the woman, watching over his shoulder. There were other children, and the program never really ended. The baby represents the continuity of what they started 20 years ago. The man he had considered a business ally for over a decade was directly involved in the program that had kidnapped his brother. And now, this same man was behind the legal attempt to obtain guardianship of his nephew. The baby made a soft sound, almost as if he sensed the tension in the room. The millionaire looked at the small child, suddenly aware of the true extent of the danger they faced. "I need to transfer you to a safe location," he decided. "This place is no longer..." He stopped abruptly as his phone vibrated with a security notification. The external cameras had detected movement. A group of men in formal attire was approaching the main gate, process servers accompanied by representatives from Horizon. "We're too late," he murmured. "They're here." "No one enters without a court order properly verified by our lawyers." "Where are we going?" "They are authorized to enter the property to verify the well-being of the child." "How long can we delay them legally?" "A precaution I never thought I'd use." "Take them on Route B," instructed the millionaire. "No stops until the destination." "They want the baby." "Whatever it takes." Indeed, he had never fully accepted his brother's death. There had always been a part of him that continued to search, to hope. How did he know that? "Go now," ordered the millionaire. "Maintain absolute silence until you reach your destination." At the head of the group, he immediately recognized the figure of his business partner, the man who, he now knew, had been behind his family's suffering for decades. From the window, he watched them approach the entrance. His cell phone vibrated with a message from the driver, tunnel crossed, heading to Secondary Road. Taking a deep breath, he headed to the front door to receive the visitors, with the neutral expression he had perfected over years of ruthless negotiations. "What an unexpected surprise," he commented coldly as he opened the door. "I don't recall scheduling a meeting for today." The millionaire stood by the fireplace, while his partner and 3 representatives from Horizon occupied the sofas. 2 process servers remained at the entrance, observing the unfolding situation. "Let's be direct," began the partner, placing a folder on the coffee table. "We have concrete information that you are harboring a child without legal documentation. A child who, according to our records, is under the legal guardianship of the Horizon Foundation. After being kidnapped at the age of 10. We're talking about a child, not property." "I imagine you've already ransacked the house," he commented, noting how the men from Horizon were observing every corner of the room. "We have authorization to verify the well-being of the child," replied one of them. "And you didn't find him." It wasn't a question. The partner stood up, approaching dangerously. "Where is the baby?" he asked directly. "What baby? You have no idea what's at stake. That child represents decades of research. He possesses genetic traits that could transform modern medicine. Horizon has invested billions in this research." Confrontation in progress. The escape route had been compromised, which meant that there were informants within his own team. "We need to finish this inspection," declared one of the officers, "and verify if there are other people on the property." The partner remained close, watching him with calculating interest. "You know what intrigues me?" he commented casually. "How you, a man so dedicated to business, so averse to family ties, suddenly cares so much about a child you didn't even know 3 days ago. The man who destroyed entire families with his hostile takeovers, who laid off thousands without batting an eye, now cares about a single child. They just reveal who they really are when pressured. Maintain course. They couldn't just disappear. But maybe you underestimate what I'm capable of to protect my family." "Sir, we implemented Shadow Protocol in time. The interception on the Secondary Road was just a distraction. We sent an empty decoy vehicle, while the real transport followed an alternative route. I want the entire operation restructured in 24 hours. Next to it, he positioned a digitized image of the baby, captured by the medical team during the initial examination. The resemblance was undeniable. the same determined look, the same curve in his chin. "I'm going to fix this, brother," he promised in a low voice. "For you, for your son." The millionaire had isolated himself in a small apartment downtown, a property registered under a false name, unknown even to his closest associates. It was from there that he coordinated his most important operation. His laptop displayed documents extracted from his brother's device, now organized methodically. A complex web of connections between Horizon, influential politicians, and powerful businessmen was beginning to take shape. At the center of it all, his own partner, a man who, he had now discovered, had financed the clandestine program for over 2 decades. The secure phone vibrated, a coded message informing him that mother and baby were well settled in the mountain refuge, protected by a personally selected security team. A discreet knock on the door announced the arrival of his latest ally, an investigative journalist known for taking down powerful figures with her relentless reporting. "I've analyzed everything you sent me," she said without preamble as she entered. "It's the most disturbing story I've ever seen, and I have the supporting evidence you asked for. If we publish this, it will cause a political and corporate earthquake," she continued. "Are you sure you're prepared for the consequences? You know this will probably destroy your own reputation too, right? Your companies are connected with Horizon on various levels. A closed-door court hearing with evidence presented directly to the federal judge I nominated. Someone was trying to access the private servers of his companies. "It started," he murmured, checking the details of the intrusion. "They're getting desperate." On the other side of the room, representatives from Horizon and his partner, who stared at him with a mixture of anger and contempt. The judge, a man with grey hair and a stern expression, studied the preliminary documents with meticulous attention. "This is an extraordinary situation," he commented finally. "The charges presented are extremely serious, involving possible crimes against humanity, and witnesses willing to testify under protection. And now he invents fantastical stories about illegal research based on documents of dubious origin. Your Honor," continued the millionaire, "I request immediate judicial protection for this child who has become a target due to specific genetic characteristics. And I ask that you authorize a full investigation of Horizon's activities over the past 20 years. And I authorize the opening of a federal investigation into the allegations presented. All of Horizon's assets will be frozen until the conclusion of the process. Given the preliminary evidence, I am also ordering your preventative detention for investigation. We can publish as soon as the child is officially under federal protection." The baby, now calmer and healthier after days of proper care, was playing with colorful blocks on his mother's lap. "We did it," he announced simply, sitting down next to them. The woman studied his tired face. "Is it really over? And my own reputation and company's probably won't survive unscathed. You look so much like him," he murmured, letting a tear escape finally. "The same determination in your eyes. Through his son. And none of that mattered compared to that small life that was now holding his finger so confidently. I think he needs a name," he said finally. "A real name." 6 months had passed since the hearing that triggered one of the biggest corporate scandals in recent history. The investigation into Horizon revealed atrocities that shocked public opinion. Decades of experimentation on kidnapped children, unauthorized genetic manipulation, bribery of authorities. The millionaire's business empire, as predicted, suffered significant setbacks. Stocks plummeted, business partners distanced themselves, contracts were cancelled. His fortune, once inestimable, was considerably reduced. But none of that seemed to matter as he watched the transformation of the garden of the country house he now called home. The roses, once purely decorative, had been replaced by a colorful playground. The meticulous silence gave way to the occasional baby cries and laughter. He tried to stand up again today, commented the woman, approaching with a tray of tea. Holding onto the living room table. Just a healthy and bright baby. Considering the biological kinship and the extraordinary circumstances, you now have shared legal custody with the biological mother. Not all stories have a happy ending like yours. The little one slept peacefully in his crib, the soft light of the evening filtering through the curtains, printed with star patterns, a particular constellation painted on the ceiling, the same one he and his brother invented in childhood. On the nearby shelf, a framed photograph, his teenage brother, an image recovered from the Horizon files. Next to it, a recent photo of himself with the baby in his arms, uncle and nephew, united by a bond that transcended tragedy. A soft sound at the door announced the arrival of the woman, who joined the silent contemplation. "I still wonder if I'm doing the right thing," she confessed in a low voice. "I don't know anything about being family. I spent years building an empire when I should have been looking for him." Without hesitation, the millionaire picked him up, feeling the comforting weight against his chest. How was it possible that such a small creature had transformed his existence so profoundly? "The investigation found the videos," he commented, while gently rocking the baby. "My brother left recorded messages for his son and for me." That night, after the baby fell asleep again, the millionaire finally gathered the courage to insert the disc into the computer. The image of his brother, now an adult, appeared on the screen. The same eyes, the same determined chin that he now recognized in his nephew. "If you're seeing this, brother, it means I managed to send it to the only truly safe place I know. You." The voice was deeper than he imagined, but carried familiar tones that awakened distant memories. "There's so much I wish I could have shared with you, so many lost years. I was proud of every achievement, worried about your loneliness, wished I could share so much, but I kept my distance to protect you. Maybe it was cowardice, maybe it was love. And if my brother is hearing this," concluded the recording, "I ask for only one thing. Teach my son to look at the stars and find our constellation. Tell him that even in the deepest darkness, we can always create our own light." The millionaire nodded, feeling a weight being lifted from his shoulders, the weight of doubts, regrets, and lost opportunities. "I'll teach him about the stars," he promised, thinking of his nephew who was sleeping in the next room, and about his father, about our family. His financial empire was reduced, his reputation in business circles permanently tarnished. Former associates avoided him, business partners had disappeared. But as he heard the happy babbling coming from the baby monitor, he understood that he had gained something infinitely more valuable: a second chance to have a family, an opportunity to redeem lost time not only for himself, but in honor of the brother who had never given up hope. "Ready for breakfast?" asked the woman, appearing at the door with the baby in her arms. "Ready for everything," he replied with a genuine smile, "for every new day." If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day.